Faster Mind, good evening and welcome to the Mags Radio Folk Show with me, John Barker, playing the best in folk and roots music from the Isle of Man and from all around the world. And starting tonight's show, we have Tarren with Bourrées. Well, that track really shows off the virtuosic playing of Tarren, and I'm very much looking forward to welcoming Alex, Sid and Danny to the island on Friday for their concert at the Institute. I do believe tickets have been flying out, so there might be a few left this week, if you look online for those. That's from their first album that was released in 2022, and I'll play a wonderful song from their more recent album, Out of Time, later in the show. Someone else I hope is coming to the Isle of Man next year to play is the excellent Edwina Hayes. She's got an amazing voice, but is also one of the funniest performers I've actually seen. Her chats between the songs are extremely entertaining. This is a single she released a few years ago, the Night Visiting Song.
I must away, love, no longer tarry. This roaring tempest I have to cross. I must be guided without a fall into the arms I love the best. And when he came home to his true love's dwelling, he's knelt down gently upon the stone, and through the window he's whispered soft, is my true lover within that home. She's raised her up from off her pillow. She's raised her up from off her bed, and through the window she's whispered soft, who's that disturbing my own night's rest? Wake up, love, it's your own true love. Wake up, love, and let me in. Oh, how the wind blows, and how it rains, and I am wet, love, unto the skin. She's raised her up from off her pillow. She's raised her up and let him in. Oh, they were locked in each other's arms until the long night was past and o'er. And when the long night was past and o'er, and when the dawn clouds they did divide, he's leaned down gently and kissed her soft. He saddled up and awaited a ride. He's mounted up on his horse and awaited a ride. He's mounted up on his horse and awaited a ride.
Well, I followed Edwina Hayes with a track by the excellent Scottish trio Skyree from their album of last year, Hunger Road. They're available for Kayleys, apparently, it says it on their website, which I'm sure will be a good night for those of you that love dancing. Next, let's have that second track by Tarren, who are appearing at the Institute this Friday night. This is a song that they performed when I saw them play last year, and it really stood out for me. It's from their album of 2024 called Out of Time, and the song is called Sunk.
Nothing quite hits you like how the hills start to wane. Marital tract and skies wide and welcome. Embrace the meaning of home in fullest form. Wind and water and soil that sustained you. Close your eyes. Feel the breeze, reforge your ties, shiver like the reeds, and slow down. You're home now, no need to explain how. These tree boughs weave round, you're sunk into the ground. 1 hour or two, 45's to connect. Waves reflecting the smiles, 10 songs or less. Give your voices to us, clap your hands out of time. Head home and we are gone at the last chime. The dirt of the road clings too tight to shake off. To the land that we know, the curves of. Close your eyes. Shiver like the reeds. Slow down, you're home now. No need to explain how. These tree boughs weave round, you're sunk into the ground. Perhaps it's home's open arms, the earliest voice. Come and refill your cup, make the terminal choice. How can we heed the warning? Counterfeit morning, prescription pills, numb all life's ills. The garden is growing, the whiskey is flowing, bread is baking, wood pigeons waking. The table is laid maiden, familiar cadence. Take the time to see, take the time, slow down. You're home now, no need to explain how. These tree boughs we've found, you sunk into the ground. Slow down, you're home now, no need to explain how. These tree boughs we've round, you sunk into the ground.
I really love that song, and I'm very excited about Tarren appearing at the Institute on Friday night. If you haven't got tickets yet, make sure you do. Let's have some tunes by Matt Malloy, Paul Brady and Tommy Peoples. This is The Scotsman Over the Border and the Killerville Jigs. I've been very much enjoying the new Robert Plant and Saving Grace album, which is called Saving Grace. And here's a track from it called I Never Will Marry.
One morning as I rambled all down the seashore, the wind it did whistle, oh the waters did roar. I heard a fair damsel make a pitiful sound. It sounded so lonesome in the waters around. I never will marry or be no man's wife. I expect to live single all the days of my life. The shells in the ocean will be my deathbed. The fish in deep water swim over my head. why I expect to live single all the days of my life. The shells in the ocean will be my deathbed. The fish in deep water swim over my head.
Robert Plant and Saving Grace there. Plant, of course, was the lead singer in Led Zeppelin. A big friend of Led Zeppelin, and in fact appearing on their film The Song Remains the Same, was Roy Harper. In the 1960s, Roy and his wife and his young son Nick lived in a flat at 58 Fordwich Road in London. And many of the leading singers and guitarists of the time were regular visitors to that flat, and Nick remembers them. And there's a new Nick Harper album out. Nick is a wonderful guitarist and singer. And this album is in fact called 58 Fordwich Road. And it's a recording of his award-winning Edinburgh Fringe show, complete with all the chat and banter, where he talks about these guitarists and plays some of their music himself. Musicians who have featured are Bert Jansch, David Graham, John Renbourn, Jackson C. Frank, and Paul Simon, among others. You can get the music as a download, but you can only get the recording of the full show on the CD, which you can get from Nick's website. I'm going to play you part of the chat and a song which a certain American borrowed from Martin Carthy. I'm sure you'll enjoy this.
So the next guy on the backdrop isn't on the backdrop. It's Paul Simon. Did some gigs with my dad and turned up at the flat a few times. So Paul Simon, lovely bloke. His lawyers? So I decided not to use his image on my backdrop for that reason. I didn't want to give too much of my cut from the Fringe away. Anyway, I'm going to play a song that he made world famous. On the face of it, a song that is a list of impossible tasks for a potential lover. So basically, I don't fancy her. Well, if you can do these impossible tasks, then we'll get it on. So I looked into this song. It's actually 2 songs, and there's a bit more to it than that. It's an old Scottish folk song, actually, called The Elfin Night. Is the basis of it, which goes back as far as the time of Alan Adale. But really, it really does. This time it really does. And it's the age-old tale of the adolescent girl and her desire to become a woman and her fear of the same, going into the deep dark wood, and she asks the Elfin Knight to do the deed and make her a woman. But he says, no, you're too young. And he gives her an impossible task. And then she falls back on her fear and gives him a list of impossible tasks. And they part with full respect and a proper grown-up relationship, almost maybe even a loving relationship. But it's all hung together with a beautiful refrain, which is a list of 4 herbs. Basically, but this is obviously from a time when herbs actually worked. I don't mean herbs from the box. So Scarborough Fair began in the year 1200. It was the biggest craft and herb fair of its day. It lasted 45 days each summer, and people came from as far away as the Byzantine Empire to take part. And that's all Wikipedia had to say about it. But the herbs in question: parsley was given to a loved one to rid them of bitter emotion. Sage was given to a loved one to give them strength and wisdom. Rosemary was strewn on the floors at weddings in medieval times and became the fragrance of the remembrance of love, not just remembrance like it is today. And thyme was sewn into the tunics of the Crusader knights to remind them of their loves at home. So each herb sort of deepens the love connection between these two people, and it's a really poignant love song, really. Oh, but of course, being a medieval song, it is jam-packed full of disgusting innuendo. So there are two songs going on here, but you can listen to either, whichever you prefer. But of course, the version we grew up with, or the version I grew up with, the beautiful Paul Simon version, is amazing. So I've merely changed parts of the melody, most of the lyrics, and the gist of the whole thing. But apart from that, I've stayed pretty close.
Are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. She asked me, plow my acre of land. Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme that lies low beyond the sea strand. Then she'd be a true love of mine. I answered, make me a cambric shirt. Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme without a seam and no needlework. Then she'd be a true love of mine. She asked me, plow it with my horn. Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme, and to sow it all over with one peppercorn. Then she'd be a true love of mine. And she bade me reap it with a sickle of leather. Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme, and to thrash it all out with a bunch of heather. Then she'd be a true love of mine. So are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. True love of mine. True love of mine.
So that was Nick Harper, remembering his youth in his dad's flat in London. His dad, of course, Roy, has been one of my heroes for a very long time, and he's been on tour just recently with Nick on guitar as well, at the age of 84, to rave reviews. I didn't make it this time, I normally go and see him. So here's a track from the album that Roy Harper had out at the time when I first got into his music. It's called Bull in a Ming Vase, all one word, and it was released in 1977, and this was a single, One of Those Days in England. In typical Roy Harper fashion, the second side of the album was called One of Those Days in England's Part 2 to 10 and was an absolute epic.
One of those days in England that you said could never end, as I was crashed out living every chance. One of those days in England we'd been saving up to spend, buying rides on Mother Nature's funny belly dance. My love, it seems so long away since when we both together lay, and yet it's only yesterday, dreaming of tomorrow. Sunday's joint is cooking in my tree. One of those days in England, chopping baked beans in my cook. Please tell me when it matters, love. I might just want to get out of bed to see. But until then, my darling, let's get down and make some fun. There's really nothing better we can do. One of those days in England and our love has just begun, and half the fun in falling is you don't care where it's to.
Roy Harper with One of Those Days in England. Paul and Linda McCartney joining in on the backing vocals on that track. Well, the next three tracks, we're going to go to Scotland. First up, we got some tunes from the band Dive, D-A-I-M-H, and their album The Rough Bounds. This is the 12th of June. So that was Dive, and next up we have Sian. It was her voice you heard on the last track I played in last week's show, the dance track by Nightworks. She's a Gaelic singer, and this is a track called Ant Sian Clathal. And now a second track from the Assault House album that has just been released, and this one's called Horizon.
I'm not gonna let them leave me dry and down. I'm not gonna let illusions of water let me drown. I'm not gonna let tomorrow fall in shadow. Just gonna let the wonder flow over the sorrow. The horizon is always bright. The horizon is always bright. I'm not gonna let the darkness draw my night. I'm not gonna let them punch me again and again and again. I'm not gonna let them take my songs and turn them to lies. I'm not gonna let their system take my thoughts, turn my mind. The horizon is always bright. The horizon is always bright. And your smile found my lost soul, and your voice called my heart round. In our hands there's a light warm as gold, and your heart is waiting for me when I dive below your hill. And your heart is waiting for me to put down the world and follow. And your heart is waiting for me to put down the world and follow. The horizon is always bright. The horizon is always bright. And it feels like the first day of spring, when the weather's turned a corner and the tide is fully in. The ship can only sail over one wave at a time, and I'm someone very different since your heart opened mine. The horizon is always bright. The horizon is always bright. The horizon is always bright. The horizon is always bright.
Now, music happening around the island this week. The usual sessions, so O'Donnell's on Wednesday evening, the Mitre in Ramsey on Friday evening. The Sunday afternoon session, I think, is probably the Woodburn Learners session, but it's probably best to check on social media that I'm right. There'll be the Folk Club in Ramsey Buffs Club on Thursday evening, and I'm sure there'll be something happening at Black Dog Oven and in the Ather Room at the Centenary Centre on Friday night. But I'm actually recording this show a week early, because I'm up in Scotland climbing some mountains. I was down on Laxey Promenade having a coffee the other day and got chatting to John and Kathy Rhodes, who are also frequent visitors to a certain cafe there. And the McLear track The Grackle was mentioned. It's from their Not an EP recording of 2014. So I thought we'd play out tonight's show with it. I'll be back next week to play more great folk and roots music from the Isle of Man and from all around the world, and I hope you'll join me then.